Hello. I'm really trying hard to make sure that I smile in this video, at least in the beginning, so that terrible picture that's on the front of the video isn't like my last one. So in week one, unit one of the textbook, we talked about or read about sports as a social phenomenon. And I apologize for reading from my paper, but I didn't memorize it, and it keeps me from being a little too nervous. Sports are a social phenomenon because of the diversity of the many groups of people that are involved in sports. Um, the purpose and the meaning have very different values to each person. As an example, if you were watching any of the World Cup game today, I actually had the opportunity to leave work early enough to watch part of the U.S. game where they lost to Belgium. And so the purpose and the values are certainly different to different people. And it was interesting that I saw so many people cheering on the U.S. because I think I'm not really used to seeing that all that much in this country, whereas in some other places that's really the only thing that they're cheering for. So I expect that if Brazil does make it to the finals, it's going to be quite a huge phenomenon there for them to have them being the host country and having their team in the sport. And again, it means has different values to each individual and each team, and that varies across different cultures. I think that sports are often considered social constructions because they function within a society based on what they offer to each group or to the individual that's playing these sports. Um, I mean, it depends on the resources. So if you look at some sports that might be common here in the United States and in other countries as well, I remember being young and having a lot of friends that played hockey, and that certainly wasn't something that we could afford because between ice time for the teams to rent and all the equipment that was involved and the travel, I know that my friends that were playing, their parents were spending quite a bit of money on all the equipment and everything that they had to do for the lessons and just because the ice time was so expensive for the teams to rent. A sport like polo or even gymnastics, where you're working with private coaches and facilities, some of those sports are very expensive, and that wouldn't be an option for someone who doesn't have the resources. Whereas baseball and soccer might come a little bit easier, especially because they have town sports that usually are free to taxpayers. At least where I grew up, they were. The values that extend to sports and exercise, I think that there's something to be said for what you can get out of sports. Achievement is something that's really important to a lot of people, and you can find it in that. Hopefully, you experience it more as a winner than as a loser because it might not want you to, it might not make you want to continue on if you're not winning. Hard work, dedication, success, and commitment to a team or to a sport if it's an individual sport. Your status, so winning or losing. Progress, making progress as you develop and practice a sport and you get better. Overcoming adversity, perhaps stability, something that you're committed to and that you find as a safe haven to yourself. And the institutional activities, I believe that there are social institutions that link sports together, such as family, education, media, politics, religion. So there's a lot of things that really connect athletics together for the athletes and for the sport themselves. So I think that those are the social institutions that are involved. Contested activities, we talked about that in our first discussion board, and it's interesting because I think people have different takes on it. Um, when I look at contested activities, I might not necessarily think right away of certain types of dance or even cheerleading sometimes. Now that's something that's become very competitive, where some schools have backed away and they've turned their teams from being competitive cheerleading to spirit squad so that they don't have to provide funding for it. So it goes in a variety of ways depending on the needs of the institution and just basically in general what people consider to be a sport. Some people might consider arm wrestling a sport because there's two people in a competition. Others might say that's not really a sport. Um, so there's a lot of different ways to look at contested activities. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone playing against another. You could be competing against yourself in any type of exercise or sporting activity, in my opinion. So that really was my takeaway from this week in the readings. I look forward to getting to know everybody and checking out your blogs and your videos. And hopefully I'll be more comfortable by the end of the semester. Have a great night.